remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I first realized this ultimate, always works, life-changing, super simple, ridiculously easy way to create your ideal life. The one where you wake up almost every day and thrive all day at work, at home, young, not so young, introvert, extrovert, it doesn't matter. Every one of us gets to control this one thing. We get to control who gets access to our energy, who doesn't get access to our energy. And even better, when you listen to today's episode, you will quickly troubleshoot what is holding you back from creating a limitless life. I use that term on purpose because today I brought back a fan favorite, the incredible, powerful, practical, fantastic, and inspiring Brenda Johnston, whose podcast, The Limitless Life, legit changes how I live on the daily, at least on the weekly. I'm always up for a dose of Brenda's insights and practical tips. And today she's back to talk about energy leaks, how to find them, how to change them, and what I find the most valuable is how to avoid them in the first place. We cover a wide range here because these sneaky energy leaks are often hard to find. From identifying your own BS patterns, like overthinking or people pleasing, to creating your own limiting beliefs and how to replace those, and expectations we have on ourselves and of other people, our inner circle. We break down all the things as together we unmute ourselves today to protect and manage our energy. So buckle up, Podsters, because this episode is going to change your life too. Are you ready to speak up, stand out, and get your seat at the table? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to Unmute Yourself, the podcast where you'll get real-life anecdotes and actionable tools for you to step into your strengths, debunk imposter syndrome, truly know your worth, and show up like you own the room every time. I'm your host, Nancy Medoff, who did the thing and followed my passion for empowering women like you to unleash that inner spark and become who you know you are meant to be. I'm a diehard foodie with a raging Skittles habit who will not stop until women everywhere unmute themselves and truly thrive at work, at home, or wherever you may be. Let's do this. Podsters, I don't even know what to say about how excited I am. So if you've been here a while, you know that I have a not so secret obsession, fascination with Brenda Johnston, who I'm going to introduce in 3 seconds. But before I do that, this is the third time you're on my podcast, isn't it, Brenda?
Yes, it is.
Third. I think I've been on yours twice. When you find somebody that you jive with, which if you were to ask Brenda, she would say energetically match, your energetic match, hold on to that. Right? I mean, yeah. So I asked Brenda to be on the podcast because I listened to her podcast religiously, and I can't remember if we were talking about this, maybe not, but I remember a while ago, I'm like, I need to bring Brenda back on because fall is coming. Fall is now here. Then the holidays are coming. And every time Brenda speaks, I feel like she's speaking directly to me, and I get a fantastic nugget. So, Brenda, welcome back.
Nancy, thanks for having me back. I always love our conversations. I feel like we have some good nuggety conversations for people that are easy takeaways too.
I do. Plus, you know all my shenanigans, so that's kind of fun too, right? I mean, you do. So tell everybody, okay, so if you're new to the podcast, we have a lot of new listeners. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you do it and why you're a rock star.
So I'm a subconscious mindset coach and also a business energetics kind of mentor coach. I help women mostly. I do help some men though, but mostly women kind of break through to that next level in business and life and relationships without all the burnout. And I do this by helping them harness the power of their subconscious minds and their energetic systems.
I love it. So, Podsters, I think it's important to pause for a minute. And, you know, I'm not big into woo-woo. Like I believe in a higher power. I believe in the universe to some extent, and kind of things aligning and energy and all of that. I do believe in all that.
Mm-hmm.
For me to have a subconscious mindset coach, strategist on the podcast 3 times is a big deal. This works. What Brenda talks about works. We've done a session together, and I'm going to put a link in the show notes. It was either yours or mine. I can't remember whose it was, where Brenda said, before I come back on your podcast again, I want you to do a session with me because I don't know that you really understand what I do. And we did. And the stuff that came out, the couple of things that came out of my subconscious mind, I never, ever would have thought it was in there. And I've done a lot of work. I've been to therapy, I've been with coaches, all that stuff. Never, ever, ever in a million years would I've thought that this was what was driving my behavior. When we figured it out, it was crystal clear as to why. I mean, I can absolutely say why. And it was nothing short of phenomenal and spectacular. So hopefully we'll touch on a little bit of that today.
Can I just add something to that?
Yes,
Because I
please do.
know people listening to that are going to think, oh, if I do the subconscious work, she's going to take me back and I'm going to have all these repressed memories. That's not what I do.
No, not
We're
at all.
not, we're really just helping you get clear,
Right,
what you
right.
just said, on what has been holding you back.
Right,
I'm not taking you back into traumas. That doesn't mean we're not healing them.
right.
Just don't need to sit in them.
So in this particular case, this was about a behavior that was showing up in my relationship with my husband. Because everything was going so great. I'm like, Brenda, I got nothing. Like, I don't I don't know. But there was this one thing, whatever, it shows up every now and then. I'm like, well, let's talk about that. And to your point, we figured out what it was. I know why. I know exactly what it's from, but we weren't like, well, let's have a conversation with your departed father and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, it was
No.
just, okay, here's the feeling you're experiencing. And then I knew why. We didn't even have to talk about it. Like, I knew why.
No,
it
and then
was
we can clear
amazing.
it. Like, we just transform it on a subconscious and energetic level, and it's just easy to do.
You clear it. And then I had a conversation with Danny about it. I said, this is why I behave like this. What do you think about this? And it was fantastic. It was fantastic. So anyway, enough of the commercial with Brenda. She has a fantastic podcast. I love listening to it. I know exactly where I am when she says certain things. Anyway, today we're going to talk about, I'm a little activated today. Did you
Oh,
notice that a little bit? A little bit.
well, I mean, I like the spicy energy.
All right. Well, I want to talk about energy leaks, and there's a few reasons why I want to talk about this. The first and most practical is that right now it's September. This will air next week, by the way, Brenda, next week, no pressure. Fall starts to get busy with commitments. We start to get back to kind of our lives where we're not as maybe free with our time. Holidays come after that. So, and combine this with the fact that I have said from day one, and this was so empowering. I always knew this about myself. I will protect my energy at all costs. And there is a cost with that.
Mm-hmm.
There is a cost with that. There are sacrifices with that, such as, do you want me to ask you, or you want me to share some of what I think they are?
I would love to hear what you think they are.
Yeah.
And then I kind of want to just explain to people a little bit about like what our energy body actually is,
Great.
because that's where people start to think that it's just the woo.
Right. Okay. So when I say my energy, and I remember I said this 15 years ago, I have a finite amount of energy in my time, and I will protect that at all costs. It's a part of every one of my keynotes. It is a big pillar in my coaching. So I think you can lose a lot of things. You can lose relationships. And one could argue, well, if the relationships weren't really serving you, I mean, it's not easy to distance yourself from an energy vampire, or it's not always easy to say, I know this person is my relative and I care about them a lot. And at the same time, they suck the energy out of the room and I can't be around them. That's significant. Or I won't be around them. That's a big deal. You end up alone, I think, a little more, because if you're guarded, or you're very intentional about who gets your energy, then you're not just going out there willy-nilly, and you're intentional about who you're spending your time with. And I also think, what else can you lose? Let me think. I don't know. I'm going to pause there. Yeah, it can be lonely, I think is what I'm saying. So what do you
Or
think?
it can be nice in that space.
Oh, I love it.
So like when I'm speaking about energy, yes, it is a little bit woo, but not really, because energy science, we're all made up of energy. So when it comes to like our energy body, when you have an energy leak, it's a drain on your emotional, your mental, your physical resources. And just like you said, like think of the energy as this limited supply of fuel. And when that fuel is wasted on unproductive thoughts or emotions, and I'm not saying you don't need to feel your emotions, I'm just saying the unproductive ones or behaviors, it can leave you feeling depleted. And so these energy leaks usually start to happen because of patterns like the one that you had with your husband or habits that are siphoning away your energy without you even realizing it. So, one of the things you just said, the people pleasing thing, right? Like when you're constantly trying to meet other people's expectations or get their approval, you are literally giving away your power. And that doesn't leave energy for you or your goals, or worst case, which, and we talked about this on one of your other episodes, it can cause burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're prioritizing everybody else over your own well-being.
It's interesting you say this because last week I was gonna have a podcast episode about this, and I think you just did one about this. You did it. So I used to be able to be like, oh, people pleaser, people pleaser, people pleaser. I never for a million never thought I was one.
Oh, I never thought I was either.
Joke's on me.
I was like,
Joke
whoa.
is on me. And it's not there's the I don't want to say obvious. I would say the overt people pleasing. This is the person that's always like, well, can I get you this? Can I get you this? No, you have it. And okay. And the covert people pleasing, I would say, which is uh sneakily. I'm trying to think the word I want is where you put other people's needs before your own and you might not even know you're doing it.
Yes. And there's another layer to that, which is what I was doing. And I have to be very mindful not to do it. As sensitive people, as empathic people, we tend to not want to feel the crap of other people. Okay. That's one piece of energy management. But what I would do is I would almost, I don't know if manipulate is the right word, but I'm going to use it. I would manipulate situations to make sure that that person felt okay because I didn't want to feel crappy. So I was people pleasing, giving away my power because I just wanted everything to be okay over there so that I didn't have to feel gross or yucky or horrible. And that's a massive energy leak.
I agree. And as you were talking, I thought of something. Just because you don't consider yourself a doormat doesn't mean that you're not behaving in a people pleasing manner. So I think that was the epiphany for me was I'm not a doormat, but
Yeah,
at the
same.
same time, I do put other people's needs before mine more than I would like to. Of course, you
Yeah,
have to do that sometimes, but
because
yeah.
you get in the heads with, oh, it's just easier. It's just easier to do. Let's just do this. It's just easier. I don't want to have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that also kind of ties into something we both talk about is boundaries, right? When you're not setting clear boundaries, whether in personal relationships, at work, those are energy leaks. When you are letting people overstep your limits, you are giving more of yourself than you should be. And I mean, that also leads to exhaustion and frustration and resentment and all the things, right? So, I mean, all of these keep tying into each other
They
because
do. They do.
now
And
that I'm talking about the boundaries, I'm also like, that also ties into kind of two things. So I don't know if I want to start with, I would say hanging on to the past is another massive energy leak. And that can be like whether it's regret or resentment or unresolved issues or failures, especially that you're holding on to, they weigh you down. That emotional baggage takes up mental and emotional energy. And that energy can be used for better things for you to move forward and create new experiences. And that's a big part of what I do with people is we help them release that trapped emotional energy because what's supposed to happen is we experience an emotion, we process it, it leaves. But a lot of the time we experience an emotion, something happens, it doesn't process and it stores inside of us. And that can mess up your beliefs. Like it's a whole thing.
okay, so couple of things to come back to. See, this is what happens when Brenda comes on
I
Podsters.
know.
Like, it's just so much. Okay, so a couple of things. You had said earlier replacing patterns, and then I made the connection in my head when you brought up boundaries again. So let's talk about this. So when you set a boundary, because this is I would say one of your core pillars is you can't just get rid of a pattern, you have to replace it with something
No.
else.
You
Right.
can't get rid of, just like you can't just get rid of a belief. You have to put something in its place.
So can you drill down on that a little bit for somebody who's newer here? Like this I know in my soul because I listen to you so much. You can't just get rid of a belief. What happens if you try to just say, I no longer believe this? What happens?
Think of it like when you go to the beach and you're digging like the sand, you're digging a hole in the sand, and then the water comes and fills in the hole. You have to take the original belief and create a better belief. So we have core beliefs and then we have supporting beliefs. I'm not going to get into all that today, but like this is why the surface level mindset work does not last. Or you'll have like, a little bit of success and then you go right back into stuff and you're making the face. So
This is why I'm going to manifest abundance. Okay? No, I'm going to manifest this. So Brenda and I both feel very strongly about this. That when you talked about the sand hole at the beach, it's going to be empty unless you fill it with something. So you can't just say, I'm going to manifest a Range Rover, which somebody on this call might have. I don't know. Somebody might have, right? Or two in Brenda's case. So you have to replace it with something else. So
here's a layer to that though. And this
yeah.
is another reason why journaling yourself to death doesn't work. You cannot create a new belief on top of an existing belief. So you have to deal with the original, you have to deal with the foundation and then build on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you have too many shoes in your closet, you can try to shove more shoes in the closet, but it doesn't really work. You have to take some out so you can like put a new pair in.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
But the crazy thing too, that ties into that and also ties into the energy leaks is we get in this space of overthinking and having self-doubt and we're constantly second guessing. So if you're sitting there constantly second guessing yourself or overanalyzing every situation, which by the way also happens when you're going through like healing and transformation, you start overanalyzing everything. That also drains your mental energy. That drains your physical body energy. And instead of acting decisively, you get stuck in this loop of indecision. And then you start procrastinating and then you feel stuck and you're like, what's wrong with me?
Yep. And then you spiral downward.
Yeah.
That's depressing. So let's go the flip side of this. Because again, I want to bring it back to boundaries. So when I set a boundary with someone, so let's say it's you know what, Brenda, I understand that you're really busy and every time we make plans, you show up 25 minutes late. So I'm going to have to ask that you honor my time and our plans together. And if you're not able to do that, I'm not going to wait for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm not going to wait for you. So it's a boundary, right? If this happens, I'm going to. So first of all, I have to hold the boundary. And when I'm waiting for Brenda and she's late, I have to actually not wait for her. And then, and this is my opinion, and you're the expert, I need to do something else with that time, right? Like I can't just say, I'm not going to wait for you. And then I go in my car and I stew. So, because I am kind of still waiting for you if I do that. But so how can somebody on their own at a very beginner level remove a belief and replace it with a different one? Like that's what I want you to try to explain if you can at a very, very beginner level.
So you've already started to explain it. The first thing you have to do is identify the thing. You have to identify the pattern. You have to identify the belief. So it starts with self-awareness. And then from there, you can start creating a new and empowering belief that's going to create new and empowering behaviors and habits. So let's say Brenda doesn't show up on time. That drives me insane. I don't know.
She does. I know you do. I know.
Yeah. But it leads me into another energy leak, but we'll get there in a second. So you recognize it. You're like, gosh, that Brenda never shows up on time. So it's a Brenda problem, but it's also a Nancy problem because Nancy keeps sitting there waiting.
I'm allowing it to affect my energy and
Yeah,
or me. Right.
100%.
Yep.
So then you recognize that you're like, okay, I recognize that I'm doing this. I've set the boundary. So the first step was recognizing. Then the second was setting the boundary with me. And then it becomes, now let's create a new and empowering belief that's going to lead to better habits.
This is it. Yep. This is it. Yep.
So the new and empowering belief might be, I'm the type of person that's worthy of having my time respected.
So I'm going to pause there for a second. Okay. And this is for people who are new. I was hoping that I would get you to say this at some point without point blank asking you. It's, I'm the type of person, and I've heard Brenda say this numerous times because I listen to her podcast a lot. So explain why you preface the comment with, I'm the type of person who. Explain that, because this is really important.
It is really important. So the reason generic affirmations or belief statements don't work is because they create subconscious conflicts. So if you don't actually believe that you're the type of person that's worthy of having your time respected, you're going to be saying, I'm the type of person that's worthy of this. That's going to help because your subconscious mind goes, oh, I am that type of person. Whereas if you're sitting there going, I am worthy of having my time respected, I am this, I am that, your subconscious mind can very easily be like, I'm calling bullshit on that.
What? Well, if that's the case, then why are you sitting here waiting for Brenda?
Right?
Right?
So there's actually 3 loopholes.
I love loopholes.
I know, I love loopholes too. I am the type of person, your subconscious mind goes, yeah, I totally am that type of person. Takes it as a truth. The belief becomes easier to create. I am choosing to value my own time. Subconscious mind goes, oh, yeah, we are choosing to do this. And then the third, which maybe, I guess it would apply to this one, I am in the process of. So I'm in the process of learning to value my own time. Subconscious mind goes, oh, we are in the process of that. Just like if I said, I'm a millionaire right now, my subconscious mind would go, no, you're not.
Right.
But I can say I'm in the process of becoming one. Mm-hmm. And subconscious is like, oh, heck yeah. And it helps bring me opportunities and things to support that.
Yep. So just think about it, Podsters. So I want you to pause for a minute and think about, I'm going to give an example. I'm a best-selling author, right? I could have said that a few years ago. Think about the difference. I'm a best-selling author as I'm sitting in my basement during COVID making macrame bracelets or whatever we were all doing. Or I'm in the process of becoming a best-selling author.
Now, let me ask you a question. When you say, and this is where we start to pay attention to like how we feel when we're saying things. And listen, this can be hard for a lot of you because a lot of you have been so disconnected from your bodies from a really long time. So Nancy, when you said, I'm a best-selling author versus I'm in the process of becoming a best-selling author, which one of those feels better to you?
I'm in the process. Here's why. Less pressure. Doesn't have to be overnight. And kind of when I say I'm a best-selling author, it's kind of like I'm jutting my chin out and I'm like putting a stake in the ground. I'm a best-selling. It sounds not angry, but it sounds strident. It sounds just tough. Whereas I'm in the process, I'm giving myself a break. It's good. It's all good, girl. It's all good. You're becoming one.
I'm going to add another layer to that because this is what I love to do.
Of course.
Not only, and listen, if you're a best-selling author and you want to talk about how you're a best-selling author, that's awesome. But if your subconscious mind doesn't believe it, it's going to create energy that's coming from a pick-me place and a convincing place. Energy speaks before your mouth even opens. So just like if you're putting offers out there and you don't actually believe that the offer is going to help people, or you don't believe in the price or your value or your worth, energy speaks. It will repel people.
I love it. Yes. And it will repel what it is that you want. Let's take this to the corporate space because Brenda also worked many, many years in corporate, very similar paths, but I'll link to the previous episodes. Anyway, So let's say you're going in for a job interview and you could go into that job interview and say, I'm going to be vice president of blah, 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 right? That's, you're going to manifest that. I'm going to be vice president. Or I'm the type of person who nails her interview and leaves no question in the interviewer's minds that I'm the best candidate for this job. And then I'm going to blow them away when I actually get the job.
Hell yes, because then you're going in there with the energy of conviction and authority versus needing to prove and pick me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying we don't have to prove ourselves when we work in a corporate environment, but there's a way to do it with conviction. And there's a way to do it from, oh, I don't actually think they're actually going to pick me because there's many other people. Like energy, again, energy speaks before your mouth even opens, and it doesn't matter the situation.
I love it. I love the pick me energy. And at the same time, I want to bring it back to energy leaks. Pick me energy is an energy leak. And I want to say one thing really quick. I want to get back to energy leaks, and I want to share a little story. One of my best stories from Brenda Advice, Golden Nuggets. I know exactly where I was a year and a half ago when I first heard this. And I took this to heart because I was having to deal with a difficult family member. By the way, for those of you in my family that are listening, I do not mean you. It was an extended family member. And I didn't want to deal with that person. It's a whole thing. And Brenda on her podcast said, when you go into a situation like that, just observe rather than absorb. And I remember I thought that was genius. And I wrote it down and I tried it and it worked. And I've heard you talk about it a million times since then. You and I have talked about it. So tell the Podsters a little bit about the subconscious mind stuff that goes on when you observe rather than absorb, because that's gold to me.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to tie that into an actual energy leak, which is carrying other people's problems. So when you're in a situation and you're taking it upon yourself to take it all on or take it into you, when you take other people's problems as your own, you're carrying their emotional weight. That not only drains your energy, but it makes it really difficult to focus on your own needs and your own growth. Mm-hmm. So that's why we say, I'm choosing to observe this, but it's not mine to fix. It's not mine to carry. There's a saying, I think it was originally a Polish saying, I don't remember, not my monkey, not my circus.
Love it. I used to say it all the time in corporate. Yeah.
Can you be empathetic and listen to them and whatever? Sure. But the habit that most people get into is trying to fix it or giving them advice or like literally taking that emotional energy into themselves.
Here's a real life example. I had a very difficult conversation with someone last week, very difficult, really loaded. And I was sitting in this room and I said, observe, don't absorb. This is literally going through my head because it was a rabbit hole. And this person is not all there. Like this was an unhinged conversation. So I woke up this morning and I was still thinking about it. I wasn't obsessing about it, but it popped into my head. And I said to myself, this person doesn't get headspace. This person does not get my headspace. And so I was absorbing a little bit instead of observing. So all of this is to say, I don't think you can necessarily walk around like Wonder Woman with a barrier, but you can observe the behavior in yourself and say, okay, why am I still thinking about this? I don't want to absorb this. This person doesn't get headspace, and leave it at that.
And when it comes to figuring out like, oh, did I observe it or did I actually absorb it? You just gave a perfect example. If you wake up the next day or even a few hours later and you're still in your head going, oh, I should have said this, or I could have done that. Maybe I should have done that. Then you've absorbed it.
And you can just observe it. Like, okay, I probably should have done that. I would have done this differently. Write it down and move on.
Yeah. The key is like moving along.
Back to energy leaks. There was something very specific you wanted to talk about. And it's something that we talked about in the podcast a couple weeks ago, because Brenda listens to mine too, Podsters. It was your inner circle.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
it.
and we're going to talk about this on Thrive Live. So, for those of you
Yeah.
who may not know this yet, every Thursday at noon, Brenda and I go on Instagram and we do a live, like 15-minute discussion on a topic. And actually, it will have been last week when we air
Yeah, I
this.
was
So,
gonna say
right,
it'll be
right, right.
but they
So,
can
if
go back and watch it.
you can watch the replay, it'll be on both our channels. I am Nancy underscore Madoff. What are you, Brenda?
I am underscore Brenda Johnston.
Okay, with a T, Johnston. But I'll link everything. But so, and I talked about it last week. So tell me why this is top of mind for you.
Well, one, because I have so many clients coming in and they want to grow and they want to get to the next level and they're stuck at like certain income levels. And then when we start to look at who they're surrounding themselves with, they're people who constantly gossip, complain about money, think that rich people are horrible, whatever, whatever. So if you're constantly surrounding yourself with those people, that's the identity that you're going to start holding on to. It's really hard to break free of that. Like when I was leaving corporate, I didn't have any entrepreneur friends. I didn't know any
Yeah, I didn't
entrepreneurs.
either. I didn't either. That's interesting.
So I had to invest in masterminds and high level coaching that put me in the room with these people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I just remember thinking, and I must have looked like such a goof. Like if I could have seen what I looked like in that room, I just remember sitting there. I had the biggest smile on my face, and I couldn't believe like how expansive these people were,
Mm-hmm.
and how positive they were, and how solution oriented they were versus let's always look for problems, which is hilarious because in my corporate job, part of my role as a senior person was I had to anticipate problems before they happened instead of let's look at the solution, let's look at the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
my mind was blown by the energy of these people and the amounts of money they were making and the things they were doing, and I was just like whoa. And that is why to this day I continue to invest in myself, my business, and high level coaching,
Yep.
because that's how I'm going to continue to grow.
So this is really quick. Why, if you haven't signed up for my Do the Thing retreat yet, happening in Naples, Florida in November, that's the type of people that you want. These are the type of women that you want to be around. This is the type of energy that you want. These are the ideas that are going to get you to the next level. You all have heard me talk about this so much. Obviously, there's a link in the show notes. But back to, in the meantime, for those of you, and Brenda, you can speak to this too. So for those of you that work in corporate America, I will tell you, I was in the corporate world for 30 years, 20, 27, 28 years. So let's talk about people who gossip. Okay. So, and if you're
Mhm.
younger in your career, everybody loves gossip to a certain extent. Maybe sometimes you find that you don't. But so somebody's gossiping. You can see, I have seen people extricate themselves from that group and seen their career take off. I have
Yep.
seen people stop hanging out with the people or the work friends that weren't going places, that were complacent and happy. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can physically see them distance themselves from those people and then take
Yeah.
off. So let's talk about that for a minute in the corporate space. So
Well, and I
what are your
mean, it
thoughts?
sounds scary to people too, because you're like, well, I don't want to like not hang out with people. You can also change your relationships with people. So
Yeah.
I even near the end, it sounds so dramatic, but I started aligning myself with like directors and people above me. And it wasn't because I wanted to get higher in the company. It was because I wanted to be around different energy and different perspectives. And I was tired of the and so did this and so did that. And man, we have too much work. Like it was so heavy. And I've always been the type of person that's like, okay, if you don't like something, change
Yep.
it.
Totally.
So I was
Totally.
getting really frustrated and I was getting sucked into this vortex of negativity like every single day. And it's funny because I knew a year in advance that I was going to leave because I was making a plan to leave, all the things. And I remember becoming even more aware of what was going on. And I remember going in So you'd go in on the ground level and you'd walk through like the cafeteria and then you'd go up the elevator. And I remember walking through the cafeteria and I could just hear different pockets of gossipy, complainy, victim mindset conversations. And I was like, oh, these people complaining about their husband and their kids, these people complaining about their manager, these people complaining about the person on their team that isn't like picking up their slack. And I was just like, oh, it felt so heavy and gross. And also made me laugh at the same time because I was just like, these people are never going to
Yep.
change because
Yep.
they don't want to.
Yep. Yep.
You have to want to change. You have to want more for yourself. Otherwise, you're going to keep all those beliefs that you think are yours, and they're probably not even yours. You've gotten them from the people you work with.
Totally. I completely agree. Yes.
So even
Yes.
in corporate, find the people who inspire you. Find the people who like make you think in a different way and go, "Oh, that's really cool."
I'm going to give all of you a tactical example of how to do this. Ready?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Especially if you work remote. I'm going to link in the show notes to my personal board of directors. So, and I talk about this a lot. It's in the book. Think about the people that you lean on the most. And I'm not going to go through the whole exercise right now because I want to be respectful of Brenda's time. Think about the people you lean on the most and make sure it's people who you value their opinion. They're going to give it to you straight and they can really guide you. They have something that you want, either a perspective, a job, respect and credibility, whatever it is. So when you think about your personal board of directors, think about this isn't your rosé Thursday after work, thirsty Thursdays. This is not. This is curating a board of directors that's really going to help you achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes. Oh, I had another thought and I lost it. There's so many good
But
thoughts.
I love the personal board of directors thing because I, at the time, had a very toxic work environment. My
Mhm.
boss was horribly abusive and just, he would pit people against each other. So I made it my mission to go find the people
Mhm.
that were above me
Mhm.
that could also challenge me and get me to see different perspectives so that I was
Yep.
constantly engaged because
Yep.
otherwise I just would have
Yep.
been
And
bored.
if you work remote, I don't want to hear that it's hard to do. It is. It's a little more challenging. Set up a Zoom coffee appointment.
I was just gonna say it would probably have been way easier
Yeah,
for the Zoom
I agree.
because I had to like literally book in the time and be able to like, can I have 15 minutes of your
Right.
time? And
Right. Yep.
and I remember there was a director and I had so much respect for her, even when I came into the company and I was there for almost 15 years, and people were afraid of her. And I just remember thinking, I want to get to know her
Mhm.
because she commands respect.
I did the same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. She ended up being one of my bosses. Yeah, it was great. It was great. Back to the inner circle. You were very specific in the words that you sent me about what you wanted to talk about. And you are very, very specific with your words. I think it's because of your marketing background and also because you know that words matter and the
Mm.
podsters know this. And what you say affects how you think and that affects everything else. So you said your inner circle, are they supporting or sabotaging your success? And I want to ask you, what would your inner circle sabotaging your success? What would that look like?
Surrounding yourself with victim mindset people who only see problems and not possibilities, or
Okay.
the people who come at it from a, I just care about you, so I don't want you to get your hopes up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got that a lot when I was leaving corporate, and also from family who just, they did want me to be protected, but also they have very limited mindsets. So when you're constantly surrounded by people who are like, well, that'd be nice, but I mean, don't get your hopes up. That those are people who are going to sabotage you because then you start listening to that. You are afraid to take risks. You don't put yourself out there. You keep settling based on what everybody else thinks you should be doing. That is sabotage. Whereas the people who lift you up are the ones who are like, yeah, let's have these conversations. Let's work through this. These are some possibilities for you. You could go this way or that way. This could happen now. This might happen, but if this happens, then you simply pivot and do this. They're the people that support the pivot if it needs to happen. versus like, oh, don't get your hopes up. I think everybody should get their hopes up. I think everybody should dream bigger.
I
I
agree.
think everybody should start to look at the possibilities, not just the limitations.
Mhm. My
And
hopes are always up, and I'm proud of that. Right.
yeah, and I'm not talking about toxic positivity here. I'm not
No,
like,
no. Mm-mm.
oh, everything is all sunshine and rainbows. No, everything is, let's look at the
Right.
possibilities, because on a subconscious level, when you look for possibilities, your subconscious mind will help you see things that are right in front of you that maybe you didn't see before because you weren't open to seeing them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to add, there's also sabotaging that's not as overt. So these are people that are overtly sabotaging, or they're overtly negative or holding you back, whatever. There's also, they might be wonderful, beautiful people. They might be wonderful souls and great. If they keep doing the same thing and the same thing and the same thing and they're not growing. So this could be if they stay in the same job and they don't grow in their career, which, and you want to,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe they don't get as much attention. If it's a peer group in the corporate life, if it's a peer group, if you're an entrepreneur, it is, you can't keep hanging out with the same people and expecting different results for you and your career, you and your business, or frankly you and your personal life. Even
Mm-hmm.
your friends. I mean, they say it's interesting because I used to go to Weight Watchers for years, and there would be people who did not want to hang out with me if I was not going to go and, go to whatever, TGI Fridays, or go have a big steak and bread, or, whatever the case may be. They weren't purposely sabotaging my success, probably, but they were.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to say, let's meet for a walk instead. I don't want to go for a walk. Okay, well, let's meet for a cup of coffee. I don't want coffee. Okay, well, that I think it's important. And, I use the personal analogy because that was a big epiphany for me when I'm like, wow, this person doesn't want me unless I'm behaving this way. That kind of behavior is not going to get me where I want to go. And so I need to not be around that person as much. Right.
That actually happened when I left corporate. I had this core group of friends in corporate. We were very close because we were together for like 15 years or whatever. And when I went out on my own, when I left corporate, I ended up losing a lot of those people because when we would hang out, they just wanted to hang on to the same problems and gossip and challenges. And then I'm over here going, but look at all these possibilities. Okay, if you don't like this, you could do this. And I wasn't doing it in a preachy way, but our energy just didn't match anymore. I'm not going to blow smoke up your butt. It sucks. You are going to lose friends or transition, but then you're going to move in to a space where you have different friends who support you and have the same energy and values
A
and
million percent.
whatever.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So,
Yep. Yeah. So one of the items that was on the list that you said you loved was expectations. So I can tee it up or I can just ask you the question. So I wrote this down. So this was expectations as an energy leak. And I've really tried to get better over the years of my own expectations. Well, there's your own, and then there's expectations from other people. We'll talk about both. The person with the most unrealistic expectations for me is me.
yeah, 100%.
So when I set these expectations and then I fall short and then I beat myself up. So let's talk about how expectations are an energy leak.
I actually like how you just had that lead in, because the way that I look at it too is, and this can be entrepreneur level, it can be in corporate. I'm just going to use an entrepreneur example.
Right.
So people have like income goals every month or whatever that they set, right? You should definitely have your money stuff sorted out. But the challenge is, if you keep setting these income goals and you're not meeting them, then you start to make it about you. What is wrong with me? Why can't I do this? And it's the same in corporate. Maybe you're trying to pitch a new project or do something, and every time you do it, it doesn't work. And so then you make it about you. And now you've created these expectations that, well, if this doesn't work, I'm a
Right.
failure.
Yep.
that is a massive energy leak. Because what starts to happen on a subconscious level is before you even start doing these things, you've already created the limitation. You've already got that energy going into it like, oh, this probably isn't going to work because you've made it mean something about you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, and so when people are like, just let go of the expectation, that's what we're talking about. Just don't be hung up on like, if it doesn't work exactly like this, then I'm a failure. No,
Well, yeah. Or make it more realistic. So, yes, we should all aim high. Absolutely. That's what we do. But if you're aiming too high and it's not realistic, or you keep missing that brass ring, and of course you want to keep going for it, but at a certain point, is it a realistic expectation? And why do you keep doing this to yourself?
and that's where subconscious conflicts come in too, right? Because it's like, and I'm not saying, again, like you said, dream big, okay? But that's where the incremental upgrades come in. So maybe you've been making $5,000 a month consistently, but your goal is $20,000 a month. Cool. You've never experienced 20, you've experienced 5. So maybe now it's 10. Okay. Now we're going to experience 10K months for like 3 months, then 15,
Yeah.
then 20,
Yep.
like same things.
Yep. Yep. Totally agree. Okay. So I'm going to ask you two more questions.
Oh.
Or I want to talk about two more things. Expectations of others as an energy leak.
Well, again, you're putting meaning on stuff. So if you put expectations on other people, you're 100% always going to be disappointed. That's what I
True.
learned.
That's a fact, right? Yeah. Okay.
It
Yep.
is.
Yep.
I had a mentor say that to me once in corporate. She's Brenda, if you keep putting your expectations on people that they need to be performing at a certain level and they're just never going to do it, you're always going to beat yourself up. That wasn't my problem. It was their problem.
Right. Right. Yep. Yep. Okay. So the reason why I wanted to have this episode today. So I live in New England. Brenda lives in Canada. And I use the analogy of tightening your house up, right? So it's starting to get cold. At night, it's starting to get down to like 62 Fahrenheit, maybe 58. And one of the things we do when it starts to get cold is we make sure all of our doors are tight, and we make sure that we have caulk, CAULK, around our windows. And I live in the woods, so I'm putting little mesh screens on the pipes coming in and out of the house so the mice don't come in. I don't want any energy leaking out. And I also don't want the bad energy coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is really what we're talking about. So could you provide 1 to 3, maybe one, maybe two tactical tips for as we're tightening up our house, as we're getting our house tight? What can we do to protect our energy or to minimize energy leaks?
Oh, the number one thing, clear out the clutter. If you've got stuff, and most people are like spring cleaning. No, for me, it's a fall thing. Clear out the clutter because energy needs direct flow. We just rented a garbage bin and I didn't realize we were hoarders. But like, we just got rid of so much crap. So get rid of the clutter. And even if you don't have stuff to throw out, tidy things up. Make sure things feel good to you because also winter is coming, right? And that's like a time of hibernation. So you want to be in a space that feels good and clean and comfortable. That's like the biggest thing I would say.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to pause for a second because I am smiling from ear to ear because this is hilarious.
Winter is coming.
No, first of all, Game of Thrones. I turned Brenda onto Game of Thrones. I meant in your mind.
That does
But
affect your mind, though.
here's what you said. You said clear out the clutter, tidy things up, make sure it feels good, and be in a space that feels good and clean and something. So in your mind, clear out the clutter, right? So how can I do that? Just
You can download my free energy management practice. It's
okay.
4.5 minutes long.
Do I have that? I don't think I have that.
I think you do have it, but you probably aren't using it. It's daily. It's a daily energy management
Oh my
practice.
God, I have to get this. Okay.
It's going to clear your energy. It's going to connect you to the earth and to the universe or God or source.
I have done this. I've done this.
And it's going to protect your energy. That's the number one thing you should be doing every single day.
Okay. So
it's 4.5 minutes long.
4.5 minutes.
4.5 minutes.
Don't tell me you don't have enough minutes. I think I did it walking and I called you to ask if I could do it walking and you said yes.
Yeah, you can totally do it walking.
Yep. Okay. So tidy things up. So for me, when I equate that to my mind, that means whatever you need to do, Nancy, get all the, like, get it out of your mind. Keep a notepad by your bed, use your voice notes on your phone, tidy it up, because you can't focus when you get all this stuff flying around. And that takes discipline for me. That takes discipline because whatever, there's always a million thoughts going on in my head.
That's also where the setting the healthy boundaries comes in, where the clearing the physical clutter helps clear the mental and emotional clutter. Like it's all connected.
Yep.
Mind, body, energy, it all works together.
Yep. It does. It does. And the last tidbit that you gave was to be in a space that feels clean, good, and something. It began with a C. And right. So
I don't know what I said.
clean, good, and something. So to me, what that means is when you're spinning and when you're obsessing about something and when you're maybe too focused or more focused than you'd like to be on something else, no one else can do that for you. No one else. And I love how you said it. We're getting ready to hibernate. Winter's coming. Be in a space that feels clean and good. Wouldn't you want your mind to feel clean and good? You're the one that lives there 24/7. So that energy practice.
And just sit with yourself too and take a look at like, what are some of the patterns that keep showing up over and over and over again in my life? Get the self-awareness on that and then start to shift those. This is again, winter hibernation, but winter is also about planning. We're getting ready to plant the seeds in the spring. So
we had this conversation last year. We did, remember, during Thrive Live. So Podsters, Thrive Live every Thursday at high noon. We talk about something that's usually timely because either Brenda's seeing it come up with her clients, I'm seeing it come up with my clients, we're feeling it. This is like the best 15 minutes on Instagram. I'm not going to lie. It really is. It is. Where can people find you? What do you want people to know before we sign off? Listen to her podcast. It's amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, listen to the Limitless Life podcast. And then the place I hang out the most is on Instagram. So you can come over there and, send me a DM. It's always me replying to you. It's not staff or bots.
That's how we met. I sent Brenda a DM and said, hey, I really loved this. I heard you say this. I really loved it. And she DM'd me back and we started a conversation. It was fantastic. And now, now look at us.
And now look at us.
Yes. All right. Well, Brenda, thank you so much. Podsters, we are back next week, obviously, with all the fun fall topics. And until then, peace out. That's a wrap, Podsters. And before we go, I ask you, what's one thing from today's episode that you will use this week to unmute yourself? DM me, email me, send a smoke signal, whatever you need to do. Let me know what you're going to do differently. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone you know and leave a 5-star review on Apple. This helps me spread our message of empowerment to more people worldwide. Let's do this.